because I got to go into work early today. I went into work early yesterday. That's why I didn't have an episode yesterday. Not only did I go to work early yesterday, but I came in from work late the night before. So I did not have a lot of turnaround time. And I was like, I probably need to spend every minute that I can sleeping. But today I woke up around 10 o'clock in the morning and couldn't get back to sleep. So we're going to go ahead and open something up. Now, I've got a pretty big episode today, and I'm still not on the camera yet. So I don't know what's going on here, why the screen is still black. Sometimes the camera just likes to drag its feet as far as getting me online, and I don't know why that is. I wish I did, because then I could maybe do something to help preventicate that in the future. So I don't know. Was it jostle it a little bit? Maybe see if that helps. Nope, still not on the screen yet. Maybe if I remove myself, leave the studio for a second. Let's see if that helps. Did I just flicker a little bit? Am I on yet? There we go. Okay. I don't know if that actually helped or not, but I'm on screen. So anyway, so I got this from Amazon, which is creatively entitled Masters of the Universe Figure 4-Pack. Wow. Really put a lot of effort into that one, huh? Hope you didn't sprain your brain coming up with that. Got a nice image here of the Sword of Power, the movie Masters Universe logo, a little bit of a wasteland in the background. This reminds me a lot of like the old mini comics and how Eternia was portrayed in those, like the early ones, the Alfredo Alcala, Mark Texeria. Hopefully I'm saying those names correctly. The early days in the mini comics before Filmation, and they drew kind of this Eternia is like in the background was kind of like this rocky, battle torn planet, and Castle Grayskull's just sitting in the middle of this wasteland, and it kind of reminds me a lot of that. So and then this is probably just clip art of the Sword of Power. Like we're probably gonna see this on a lot of merchandise and such. And there was some tape holding it together at the sides, and I went ahead and cut the tape earlier. So here's what the inside looks like, and we got photographs of art. We got artwork, in photographs. We got He-Man, Man-at-Arms, Skeletor, and Goat-Man. Man, that's a deep cut. I don't know if I've ever really talked about Goat-Man to any great extent on this channel, because that is a really obscure character. He was not a character that was made into a figure in the vintage line, and it wasn't made into a figure until the classics era. The image of the Sword of Power continues on into the rest of the box there. It's a nice box for what it is. From the outside, it just kind of looks like a mailer, but when you get it opened up on the inside, that's where the printing is. So, oh yeah, and I've got the Fisto Ram Man 2-pack. We've got that to open up. And I'm not just going to open this up today. I'm also going to open up these bad boys, because I got the regular Kids Core Masters Universe He-Man and Skeletor. Now, the reason I bought these is because they are different from the ones in this 4-pack. And originally I kind of figured I could just buy the 4-pack and call it a day. Well, no, there's differences in the figures, and I want to talk about those. So that meant that I had to buy them. And honestly, I just kind of bought He-Man on a whim. Like I knew I was going to have this Amazon 4-pack coming in, so I'm like, I don't really need this other He-Man figure, because I got the one coming in the 4-pack. So, and I've got the Sky Sled that I ordered. So that's going to be 3 Kids Core He-Man figures that I have. And do I really need that many? I don't think so. Let me get my clippers. My snips. Get my snips, because I might need those in a minute. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna need it. But I'll go. It's only $10. I might as well buy an extra one. Hey, I can talk about some of the differences in the packaging and similarities to the packaging on the other figures. Now, something that I noticed is that the Chronicles figure. You see, if you look at the inside of this package, there's the image of He-Man facing off against Skeletor, which we saw on the inside of the Amazon package, and it's also very similar to this image we have here of He-Man facing off against Skeletor with the sword in the middle on the Chronicles package. But I do believe that this is the same image of Skeletor. I think that's the same exact picture of Skeletor. But the picture of He-Man is different. There's two different pictures of He-Man on there. Why are there two different pictures of He-Man when they use the same Skeletor? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what the thought process was. Perhaps when we get the Chronicles version of Skeletor, it'll be different. I would imagine on the Chronicles version of Skeletor, they'd want to have Skeletor here on the front of the package, and then they'd probably put He-Man over to the side. I don't know. But I do notice that on the 2-pack here, we got again Ram-Man and Fisto facing off against Skeletor. So I'm guessing that that's going to be how that packaging is going to work. Is we'll probably see whatever the main character that's in the package would be out, like Ram-Man and Fisto here. Like, say if this was a Man-at-Arms box, it'd probably be Man-at-Arms facing off against wrong side, off against Skeletor. But if it was, say, Triclops, I probably should just look at these boxes while I was at Target. Like Triclops might be facing off against He-Man, for example. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I do have a few other of these Kid Core figures to open up, and I'll probably get around to those soon. But next episode, I do want to open up Vigilante, because that was the next DC episode I was planning on opening up. I just kind of want to do this right now when I know I've got time. And like I said, it's going to be a big episode, because we're going to open up both of these figures, because I know I'm going to want to compare them to the figures that are in the 4-pack. And I guess whenever I get around to getting Man-at-Arms, I'll compare him to the version of Man-at-Arms that's in this box set. Because I'm sure if He-Man and Skeletor are different, then Man-at-Arms is certainly different too. And apparently Goat-Man is supposed to be an exclusive figure to this set, which is the main reason I wanted to buy this set anyway, because of course I wanted to have Goat-Man. Who doesn't want to have Goat-Man in their Masters Universe collection? How can you consider your Masters Universe collection to be complete without Goat-Man? Now, I've opened up one figure from this Kids Core line before, but it wasn't a movie figure. It was the Walmart exclusive Revenge of Skeletor figure, which I thought was okay. I wasn't too incredibly impressed with it, but I thought it was a fine action figure. Like I figured kids would probably like it anyway, and there were things about it that adults would enjoy. I personally like the Havoc staff that the figure came with, and I very much liked the Gladiator kilt that particular version of Skeletor had. So inside we got an insert with a picture of Nicholas Galitzine as He-Man. It says He-Man, most powerful man in the universe. It's actually kind of glued in there. You can see a couple little spots of glue there holding it in. Did I leave? Yeah, I got the movie He-Man over here. No, that's my custom of the movie He-Man. Well, that's not going to do me any good at all. I need to have that actual. I'm going to have to go across the room and get it, because I should have thought to get that before, and I didn't. So now I'm going to pay the price. I'm going to have to scooch on by here and go over there and grab it. And we get so much stuff piling up over here. Oh, man. But yeah, I definitely want to have that figure to compare. I might as well grab the Chronicles one while I'm over here too. And I want my basket of laundry I had sitting on the bin there. Okay, well, where is it? Man, I am just not prepared. This is what happens when I try to do an episode and I'm not really awake yet, I probably should have spent a little more prep time. That's all I'm saying. Lordy me. There's that Warduke figure I still need to open up, or not open up, but I still need to talk about that on the show. That thing. Oh, man. Too much going on right now. I'm going to be pissed if I find out that I did have that figure over here the whole time. But I just got all kinds of piles of stuff over here that... Hang on, I assure you everything's going to be fine. We just need to get this straightened out. Get this straightened out. We're experiencing technical difficulties. The episode is still in progress. Just give me a minute. I'm working on this. But it actually is essential that I have that particular figure because I did want to compare the sizes of the swords and everything. So we're definitely going to want to have him over here. I just got to figure out where I put him. Maybe I did have him over here. I don't know. I know I had him over here at one point because obviously I opened him up. There it is. Ah, geez. But yeah, I wanted to compare the size of the swords on those figures because especially that was, to me, the most important thing about comparing these two figures was to compare the size of the swords. And did I bring the... Yeah, we got the Chronicles figure over here. So I'm going to have 4 different movie He-Man figures to compare here because I've got the 2 Kids Core lines that I've got to compare. And whenever I get the Sky Sled, I'll have to compare him to these other ones that I have too. Man. The other Kids Core figures anyway. So I got the Origins version of He-Man here. And I've got the Chronicles version of He-Man. So we got an adult collector version, a vintage style version, and the actual kids version. So let's go ahead and get this sword out of the package. And it's held in here in the most annoying way possible with a little rubber tab that's wrapped around like the inside of the handguard. So I had to very carefully snip that. And then we got rubber tabs around each of He-Man's ankles. Let's go and get those snipped off. It looks like that's it. Just the 2 rubber tabs around his ankles. Why just around his ankles? I have no idea. But hey, it's less rubber tabs, so I'm not going to complain about that. I'm gonna let that ride. All right, so now we got He-Man out of the package. And where did I put... I swear, this is just not a very organized episode, is it? Well, we'll just, for now, I'll toss that over there. Just get it out of the way. All right. So, here's a look at that. Closer look at that for those of you out there in the audience. And something I noticed about this figure when I was looking at him is he's definitely got some detail on that belt buckle there. If we remember the Origins version, not a lot of detail to the belt buckle. In fact, I think the belt buckle is a little inaccurate because it's kind of a little more oblong kind of shape on there. And I believe it is more this circular shape. And there is some kind of detail sculpting into it, some kind of design. I can't quite tell what it is. Interestingly enough, The Chronicles version does not have that kind of detail on it. It's got like some paint detail on it, like a little bit of a wash or something, but it does not seem to have this sculpted detail that the Kids Core version has. Now there is a little opening here in the back, a little peg and a hole type of fastener, and we can take that off. We can take off the entire gladiator kilt. And if you're somebody who would have rather had the furry trunks on your He-Man figure than the gladiator kilt, guess what? He's got furry trunks underneath, just like how the Origins figure had furry trunks underneath. So he does have a little bit of fur detailing to his figure costume that this one had the fur underneath too. The movie version doesn't have that, I don't believe, at least not that I've seen, unless there is a scene where he just kind of rips off his gladiator kilt and he's got furry shorts underneath. It's possible, I suppose. And then the Sword of Power, which is the one accessory that comes with this guy. And even though he's a smaller figure than the Origins, his sword is slightly bigger. And can the Origins figure hold it? Yeah. So if you want to swap it out for, it might be worth $10 to somebody to have a larger power sword, and maybe you don't have a 3D printer like I have. How well does it fit into the sheath on the back? It fits in there pretty well. So you could use this with the Origins figure. If you're somebody who thinks this power sword is a little too small for Origins and you want a larger one, well, spring an extra $10 for the Kids Core version. But let's go ahead and put the sword in his hand and see him holding that. And there he is with that. And he's got the cross on the front of his armor. Is just kind of a matte red paint. Something that I noticed about the movie logo, and I am an old school kind of guy. I do prefer the 80s style Masters of the Universe logo to this one. Although I don't think this logo is bad. I just like the 80s version better. But one thing I noticed that was kind of neat is you see how it's in red, and it's got this kind of beveled sort of shape to the Masters part of the logo, and it is very similar to the kind of beveled edge that the He-Man emblem itself has. So there's a little bit of a corporate synergy there, as the kids say these days. We're going to talk about the articulation on this guy in a little bit, because I want to get Skeletor out of the package, and then we're going to start on the actual Amazon figures that are really the meat of this video, I think. But I figured I'd go ahead and open these up on screen. Might as well get as much use out of them as I can. So let's go ahead and open up Skeletor. And you see, like, where He-Man had red down at the bottom here, Skeletor has purple detailing. Whereas, I don't know, did I still have the card over here? I probably should have thought to keep that over here if I didn't. Shame on me. This is just a very unorganized episode. I got kind of thrown off a little bit. Well, the back of the package, you see it's got like a purple background to it, whereas with He-Man it was more sort of orangey and red. So I guess the good guys get red and the bad guys get purple. So, and they do have these kind of stat things on the back. I forgot to talk about that. And it says, witness Skeletor's rise as he attacks Eternia and He-Man to uncover the secrets of Castle Grayskull for himself. And then it's got like, he's off the charts pretty much on everything. He's a little lower on intelligence and a little lower on strength, but it looks like everything else, he's pretty maxed out. Combat and magic and evil. Of course he's maxed on evil. So, where did I put the card for He-Man? Because now I really want to look at it. I want to see what his stats are like and everything like that. Here it is. Okay. Yeah, He-Man has completely different stats, because Skeletor's stats are strength, combat, magic, intelligence, and evil, and He-Man's are strength, combat, intelligence, magic, and tech. Because obviously He-Man would be ranked really low in terms of evil. He'd probably be like a 0 in terms of evil, maybe a 1. Like, he might occasionally take his books back to the library a little late. But it was because he was busy, defending Castle Grayskull and everything. But He-Man's got a 10 for strength and a 10 for combat, a 6 for intelligence, so not the sharpest knife in the drawer, I guess. I would think He-Man would be a little higher for intelligence, at least like an 8. Very low on magic, which surprises me because, he's got the power of Grayskull. That's magic. But I guess it means more like, skills with magic than actual magic power. And then tech is like really super low. But Skeletor doesn't even have a ranking for tech. And He-Man's little bio says, He-Man wields the sword of power to rescue Eternia from the evil clutches of Skeletor. If somebody's going to have clutches, they're going to be evil clutches. You never hear about somebody's heroic clutches. I'm just saying. So let's go ahead and open up Skeletor. Oh, and there's the difference with the color I was talking about. Skeletor's is more purple, and He-Man's is more kind of orangish, reddish kind of colors. He-Man's got like orange, and Skeletor's got purple, so I'm guessing that's how it's going to go. Bad guy is going to be purple, and good guy is going to be orange. I'm guessing that's how it's going to work. And I do have some other Kids Core figures in this line. I've got Mechanic, and I've got Tila, and I've got Beastman. So those will be opened up at some point in the near future. I think in the next episode, I'm going to open up Vigilante finally. And then, so his staff is in here in a really annoying way. And I open up Vigilante, and then I'll get on to doing a whole lot of movie He-Man stuff and the 2000X stuff. I think it'll finally be time for me to get started on that 2000X stuff that I've got just like a ton of. And I gotta say that I really like the design of this Havoc staff, and they did a good job designing that for the movie. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But first, I want to get this Keldor figure that I got over here, the good old Masters of the Universe Origins Keldor, and he's got his own Havoc staff, so I'm going to take that out and set this aside, because what I really want to do is see how well that the standard Origins figures can hold this Havoc staff, and he can actually hold it fairly well. So if you want to take this Havoc staff and give it to one of your Origins figures, and I would not mind you I would not blame you if you did, because it's very cool looking. And one thing that's a little different about this from what I would have expected is that I'm so used to Skeletor's staff being purple at this point. And this staff is not purple at all. So it's mostly kind of a gunmetal gray color. I'm guessing that's the color that it's molded in. Although it does seem like that the horns are painted. The head looks like to me like it's a separate piece. So it's like a piece of kind of bone white sort of plastic. It's molded separately. And then the spine, because you can see there's a piece of his spine there in between the skull and the staff. That looks like it's painted to be that same color. So he's got a skull that's molded in bone white plastic and has gunmetal horns painted on there, and a staff with a bit of a spine that's molded in gunmetal plastic but painted to be white. It's all very confusing. And his eyes, the eyes on the Havoc staff are kind of a metallic bluish greenish color. Looks very cool. And if we compare it to the mold of the original, it's not the original Power Staff Havoc staff, but you know what I mean. It's the same mold. You can see got a very similar sort of thing going on here with these kind of rings, these kind of ridges, very similar design, but it's kind of bent back at kind of an angle because it's got this curved spine to it. And then there's some ridges up and down, like some texture there, and like a little bump in the middle, little divot where it's divided in the middle. And then it does not have the round pommel that the original version had. It has kind of a slightly pointy pommel. And I'm thinking about how in Revelation, Skeletor's Havoc staff had a pointy pommel, and he used it to make stabby on Prince Adam in the 6th episode, the very end of that, when they did that fake out with the death of He-Man and that. They killed him off again, supposedly. But it was just a fake out. All right, so I'm going to pull his head off because I know his head's going to be removable. And I was thinking the cape might be removable, but it's not. So that made that entirely pointless. Because I was going to try to take the cape off because I thought it'd be easier to pull it through that way, but it's going to have to power through it. And I just, speaking of powering through it, I just kind of powered through those rubber tabs there. So Skeletor has a very long hood, or at least another piece of fabric coming off the very long hood. It does remind me a lot of the hood that he had in the 1987 movie. And you can see there's a lot of good, there's like a paint wash over that skull, a lot of good detail there. It looks like there's a little bit of paint wash on the blue of the character's body. You can see like there's some grayish shadows in there. And this cape is not removable. This cape is molded to the figure. So if you buy this figure, he's just going to have that cape on there forever. And I don't see a way to take this gladiator kilt off of Skeletor. So that, unlike with He-Man, that seems like that's stuck on him forever. But Skeletor underneath just kind of has like a plain Speedo. And it's molded in purple. It's not black. Like usually Skeletor's shorts under his trunks or his trunks under his gladiator kilt are black, but not in this version. And it looks like if you want to try to take this off, and I think if you wanted to, you could fit this onto an Origins figure, but I'm not going to go through all the trouble of doing that right now because I've got a lot to talk about on this episode. But I might see if I can get it off of him later and get it onto an Origins figure and see if it can fit. But I'm betting this could fit on an Origins figure. And it seems like the best way to get it off without destroying the thing entirely would be to, you see it is a ball and socket joint down there. So what you want to do is heat up these legs, pop them off, and then just slide the kilt. You might want to heat that up while you're at it. Use a hairdryer would be my advice. I think hairdryer would work better than warm water in this because it's going to be involved. Heat it up with a hairdryer, pop off the legs. I'd pop off both of them in this case. And then heat up the gladiator kilt. Make sure that's nice and soft, nice and pliable. And then you can go ahead and peel it off. So like I said, we're going to talk about, like with He-Man, we're going to talk about the articulation with this guy when we actually open up the Amazon 4-pack, which we're about to move on to that, but I want to put the staff in his hand. So there he is with the staff in his hand. And I want to say that just right off the bat with specifically the standard figures, that these are very nice looking figures with a lot of good sculpting, a lot of good paint detailing. They're not quite as high quality as the Chronicles figure that I opened up. Like I think even just in the just over the camera, you can see the difference in quality on these two. This one definitely is the better of the two. But that's not to say that this one isn't more impressive. I'd say as far as like the quality of the paint applications go, Chronicles is the winner. This guy is an impressive second place. I would not have expected this one to be as well painted as this guy. He's got like lots of good detail on his face. You know, there's kind of shading around his eyes, and his lips are painted in, and the eyes are very realistic. And of course, this guy, just by the very nature of what this figure is, this guy's a bit more simplistic. So he's definitely got the least detailed paint of all of them. But that's not a bug; it's a feature with this guy. Al Davis is here and says, "Afternoon, Alan. Missed the beginning. Hope you're doing well." Yeah, well, I got off to an early start, so who can blame you? But yeah, we're doing all right. It's just one of those days where like I woke up too early and couldn't get back to sleep. So I figured I'd go ahead and do this so I could get it out of the way. Because I knew it was going to be a fairly long and involved episode because we're not only opening those two figures, which is already one more figure than I usually open up on one of these streams, but I'm opening up this whole 4-pack. And I mainly did that, like I said, because I wanted to compare the figures in the He-Man and Skeletor figures in the 4-pack versus the single carded release versions, and we're gonna do that in a little bit. But I need to get all of these out of the box first. So Man-at-Arms accessories were not held in with any rubber tabs at all, and he has a pistol, little blaster pistol, and he's got his mace, which is very reminiscent of the original mace. So, like I said, I bought the extra He-Man figure, the single card He-Man figure, just on kind of a whim. I was just kind of like, well, it's only $10, and I would like to go ahead and have one that's on the single card. I was almost thinking maybe I might even keep them on the card, and I might, for $10, I might buy another one and keep them on the card, like a third one, a fourth one, because like I said, there's going to be one that comes with the Sky Sled, and I don't know if it's going to be different from either one of these. But then I'd seen where somebody had posted on Facebook, where somebody had posted on Facebook. You thought you misread that? What, you mean the title? No, I was getting to it. There are some rubber tabs around. I missed the rubber tabs around the ankle. I could have sworn I got those, but I guess not. I'll get it now. But Skeletor, I'd seen on Facebook where somebody had posted that Skeletor had a fabric cape in the box set and had a regular plastic cape on the more standard figure. So I definitely thought those were different. And then when I got so I went ahead and bought another one. And when I was pretty impressed, like I said, with the way that they painted his face on this one. But when I got the Amazon figure in hand, I noticed that he did not have that black wash over the face. So due to the way that this was packaged, I was kind of worried at first that I had lost, that he had like one of these orange bracers on this side and that it had fallen out of the package somehow. But I double checked, and apparently he just does not have an orange bracer on his right hand in the movie, interestingly. And even though he's got the shoulder armor on both sides, he's only got the wrist armor on one side. Kind of strange. Al Davis says, you opening loads of figures. I thought it was a pre-recorded super long unboxing. No, we're live right now. Bobby Wald says, oh my God, Man-at-Arms alternate identity is Heimdall. Yep, that's Idris Elba. All right. So that's why this is so immense, is because I did want to compare on these figures. And the paint job is not as impressive on. There is still a wash over it. I'll talk more about that obviously when I get him opened up, but it's not quite as impressive as the one that the single carded figure had. So I'm going to advise anybody that if you bought the 4-pack because you figured, well, then I don't have to worry about getting these single carded ones. Well, if you're into variants, they are different. And He-Man's sword is a different color. I like the sword on the Amazon a little better because it seems a little more opaque. But the one that comes with the single carded figure is a little lighter in silver. So that might be somebody's preference as far as that goes. I don't know. It depends on what you're looking for, I think. And then we got He-Man himself. So let's go ahead and get him out of the package. I'm just kind of going from left to right here. No other order other than that. I mean, I suppose it would have made more sense for me to get He-Man and Skeletor out, since those are the ones that I already have the other figures of. And then we got rubber tabs around. They're kind of right around where the knees are at. And I don't like that, because then I kind of worry that they might get kind of caught up in that knee joint. And that's annoying. And by the way, like I talked about with the Revenge of Skeletor figure, these figures do not have ankle joints. For the most part, they've got articulation that matches up pretty well with Origins. But the knee joints, so the ankle joints just don't exist on these figures. And there is our 4-pack He-Man out of the package, and I'm sure you can already notice some subtle differences on him versus the other movie version. Oh, I didn't talk about this before, but his armor is removable also. I didn't bother to take that off. Al Davis says both came after his identity as Stacker Pentecost from Pacific Rim. So we should just do into the Idris verse. Just have all the different versions of Idris Elba. And of course, Charles Minor from The Office, who is aware of the effect that he has on women. A rare villainous character for Idris Elba. I mean, he's played villains a few times, but I think that's probably my favorite villain, at least that Idris has played so far. Anyway, so his gladiator coat comes off. I just wanted to check. It is the same color brown that the rest of his outfit is. It's like this one, like the brown is a little more pale and a little more washed out and not quite as warm and vibrant as the brown on the single carded figure. It's a little more sort of a milk chocolate sort of brown. And this one's a little more sort of like, you know, steak that's overdone kind of brown, I guess. I don't know. Like maybe coffee with just a little bit of cream in it. All right, so where was I? Let's go ahead and get the rest of this stuff out of here because we got more to go over. So we got Skeletor's Havoc staff. Go ahead and get this out of the package, and it's held in with a single rubber tab. And it's kind of stabbed through the packaging there. And the first thing I notice on this is that remember how I was talking about the single carded one has kind of a bone white for the skull. This one is a little more gray. A little more gray as far as that goes. The eyes seem to be that same bluish, greenish sort of color, and the gunmetal seems to match up pretty well. But it's the color of the actual ram skull itself that's slightly different. So I'll set that down here where I'm putting the rest of the accessories, and then get Skeletor himself out of the package. And what did I just knock in the floor? I just knocked something on the floor. I hope it's not anything important. I don't think it is. Seems like it was just a figure stand. So we got Man-at-Arms pistol and mace. We got He-Man's sword. We got Skeletor's Havoc staff. I just want to make sure I have all that stuff still here on the counter. Al Davis says, I thought John Cena was brilliant in Suicide Squad with the I thought Idris and John Cena were brilliant in Suicide Squad with the rest of the cast too. Yeah, like I kind of didn't get that character though. I mean, he was good. Don't get me wrong; he's always good. He's a good actor. But I didn't get the that version of Bloodsport. It wasn't really anything like what Bloodsport was in the comics, and it seemed to me like they just kind of turned him into like a knockoff of the Will Smith version of Deadshot, like what they'd already established. Like maybe just James Gunn just didn't want to use Will Smith or couldn't use Will Smith, so just made up a character that was just kind of a knockoff version of that. And then I read somewhere that character was really originally supposed to be Deathstroke, and I'm like, that makes even less sense than Bloodsport was not anything like that in the comic book. Bloodsport was not a single father, and he was not like a cool dude. He was just a psychopath. So in the worst possible way. So I remember I had that comic when I was a kid. So not only did they do the horrible Mattel thing that I hate of taping the cape in here, but you can see they taped all around the bottom edge. And this bottom edge is kind of die cut already. So it already looks raggedy. It's supposed to look raggedy. But now I'm going to have all this residue on here. And it's going to be, I think, kind of difficult to peel this tape off without causing the fabric to fray. Which even with the fabric supposing to look like frayed fabric, I don't want it to actually fray, if that makes any... I want to preserve the integrity of the die-cut fray. As dorky as that is. But my criticisms of the way that character was written aside, yeah, I thought like he played the character really well. He's always good. He's a great actor. One of the reasons I was excited he was going to play Man-at-Arms. So we're going to talk more about that when I talk about the figure. Bobby Wall says, I tried to watch those two together in another movie called Head of State. They were very forgettable for me. I don't think I ever saw that movie. So, and then Dal Davis says, agreed, but also I'd say it's a hell of a lot better than a lot of the other streaming films and fairly good stunts and action for what it was. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of that movie. I don't know if I've ever heard. I'm kind of surprised there's a movie that's got both of those actors in it, John Cena and Idris Elba, that I've not heard of. So now we got Skeletor out of the package. And like I said, the main difference with these guys is that he's got a fabric cape. And then the hood itself is different because remember how I was talking about there was this other piece that came down from the hood? That's fabric as well. So if you want to do a head swap on these guys, that might take some doing. But this is a whole rubber piece that's like permanently glued on. This is a whole rubber piece that's permanently glued onto these. Even these are kind of different because there's a little more. This one seems a little thicker at the breastplate part of it. That's the only way I can think of to describe it. Anyway, we're gonna come back to that. So I do want to compare on those, but we still got to get Goat Man out of here. Al Davis says it was a recent Amazon film, very predictable but shallow, fun-ish, and yeah, pretty forgettable too. And Bobby Wald says that he's pretty sure it's on Amazon. So Goat Man's axe does not have any kind of rubber tabs holding it in that I could see. Just like Man-at-Arms weapons did not have any kind of rubber tab. Only He-Man and Skeletor's weapons had rubber tabs, and they were in the center of the package. And I would think, if you were going to put rubber tabs on anybody's packages, it'd be the guys at the edge. But what do I know? I'm just the guy who opens these things up. I'm not the guy who puts them in the package. If I was the guy who put them in the package, we just wouldn't do these rubber tabs at all because they are stupid and pointless. All it is extra work for me. And don't come at me with, well, they need to have the rubber tabs on there so you can hear people taking it out of the package when they're shoplifting in the stores. This was an Amazon exclusive. Nobody's going to buy this in the store. And if they did, it's secondhand. So it's not Amazon's problem at that point. Anyway, we got Goat Man on the package. All right, so I'm going to talk about Goat Man first, since he's the one that I'm holding here in my hot little hands. And then I'll talk about Man-at-Arms. And then I'll talk about He-Man and Skeletor because did you mean the cut of his cloak or his chest plate? More but well, so I'm a little behind now. I think I moved on to other stuff. So, but like you see where like the breastplate, like it looks almost like it's a little thicker. Like this is not the same piece. Because this piece is molded onto the rubber cape. You can't take this cape off. It does not come off. This cape, I'm not sure if it's intended to come off either. It seems like it's actually glued on underneath this, but they are two different rubber pieces for the breastplates on Skeletor. Both of these are, I'm going to call it a breastplate. I don't know what else to call it. But both of them are different. The single-carded one, they both have the same sort of red gem in the middle. They both seem to be the same color. But the single-carded one, it looks like that piece is actually a little thicker where it meets the chest. And they're both glued on there permanently. But this one seems almost kind of like more like it's a little more flush with his pecs. And this one seems like there's a little more of a ledge there. And in fact, it seems like there's a little bit of space right in between this point here. And since I haven't seen the movie yet, I'm not sure which one is more accurate. So I'm just pointing that out. I do like the head sculpt better on this one. So I was thinking, it might be the sort of thing where like I could swap the head from the standard version onto the fabric cape version and have the nicer head with the fabric cape. But I don't know how easy or difficult that's going to be, mainly just because of the extra fabric piece. I don't know if that's going to be anything doesn't seem like, I think it's probably sewn or glued on here somehow. Yeah, it's glued underneath. Yeah, so one of these is going to have either two of these extra pieces here, a plastic sculpted. I suppose I could cut it off, but if I put this one on the regular one, he's just not going to have that at all. But the hoods, other than that, the hoods even look different on other ways. Like this one has like a little more texture to it. And like I said, their skulls themselves are the one on the single card is painted much better. So I suppose what you would really want to do if you did that, this is going to be kind of involved, is you want to take the hoods off of both these heads and put this hood onto this head when you put it back onto this figure. I think that's what you would want to do. It's kind of complicated. It's definitely more complicated than I'm prepared to do during this unboxing. So let's go ahead and talk about Goat Man. And his gladiator kilt actually does have a little opening over here on the side, which I did not see one on Skeletor at all. Maybe I'm just missing something, but it does not look like Skeletor's gladiator kilt is meant to be removed at all. But Goat Man does have like it looks like this is all one piece. This whole harness and be really careful when you're taking this off. This is a tight fit on here, and I noticed when I was peeling it off, I started to it's painted here, and the paint kind of split, and I noticed some stress in the plastic. So be really careful of that. And then there's another peg up here at the top. And again, it's putting stress onto the, it's just a really tight peg, and it's putting stress onto that peg. So be really careful when you're taking this off, if you're going to take it off at all. And in fact, I've decided I'm just not going to. It's putting too much stress on it. And even though it's meant to be removed, like they made it too thick and you can't take it off. You can see underneath though that he's just kind of a black Speedo, and he's got kind of black garters. I don't know. He's got garters. That's what it is. But yeah, it looks like all of his straps and everything are this same sort of. It's either kind of a light blackish or a light black or a dark grayish, kind of brownish kind of color. It's kind of hard in this light for me to tell exactly what color it is, but it's kind of an off black. The figure itself is molded all in red plastic. He's got little cloven hooves that are painted in brown. Got kind of like almost like Ninja Turtle type hands, where he's only got like 2 fingers and a thumb, but they got pointy claws at the end. Ashy chocolate, asked Al Davis. Well, maybe actually dark chocolate. And it looks like his horns match the same color as his hooves. They are kind of cloven hooves. You can see they've got like a little bit of that sort of tippy toe thing going on that cloven hooves have, and no articulation from the knees down. So, and he is quite a bit taller than your standard figure. If you see him next to He-Man, about half an inch taller if you don't count the horns. Looking at him next to an Origins figure, again, since those are about the same height, he's a little bit taller than an Origin figure, but he's not really in scale with Origins because he doesn't quite have the bulk. And this is that half Thor guy that played the Mountain in Game of Thrones. So he would be a guy that's got some bulk. But the proportions on these are a little more naturalistic than the Origins figures. So I'm hoping at some point they give us an Origins version of Goat Man. I don't know if they will. I've seen they've got some more Origins figures coming out. They've got Man-at-Arms. They do have Teela, which I was kind of thinking Teela would be unlikely, but no, they've got Teela coming out, and a few others. I did not see Skeletor yet. Of all the characters, I would have thought I would have seen Skeletor before I would have seen Teela, but apparently not. And then he's got this big old axe, big old pole axe, kind of vaguely reminiscent of the pole axe that came with the original Castle Grayskull. Not exactly the same, but kind of vaguely reminiscent of it. Al Davis says, I like that cloven hoof look. And Bobby Wald says, remembering when they were having fun with names, Merman was going to be Seaman. I wonder if his original name was Horny Man. Well, I don't know, because this is a character that, like, okay, here's the deal with Goat Man. He was a character that appeared in one of the Masters of the Universe golden books, like the little story books for kids. He appeared in that. Never had a figure, never was on the cartoon, never was in anything except for he was just kind of like, I think, Beastman's henchman, if I remember correctly. And he was kind of an odd looking character. He looked kind of similar to the original Clawful in terms of like the coloring. Like he had blue trunks and blue boots. He had Caucasian arms and legs and a little bit of his tummy showing and his neck was showing and it was Caucasian. And then he had a red head. I don't mean like he was a redhead, like he had red hair. I mean his face was red and it looked kind of like almost like he was wearing a mask. And this guy obviously is just an all red guy. And then he had like a red breastplate with this kind of black strappy design over it, and they just made it. This is very accurate how the straps were drawn on that figure. And then they did do a Masters of the Universe Classics figure, and so he has had an action figure before. Al Davis asks, how do you think the cheaper range will handle Cringer / Battle Cat? Well, I saw the Battle Cat figure and the Chronicles version, which I definitely want to get that. And it's a little smaller and it has some electronics in it so he can roar. I think it's the sort of thing where, like, I didn't look too closely at it, but I think it's the sort of thing where, like, you press a button and his mouth will open and he'll roar and all that kind of stuff. So there he is holding the axe. And we can get him into, like, a pretty good two-handed pose with this axe, I think. So there's that. And he's got some good paint detailing on there with, like, that kind of white painting around the mouth, like where it looks like he just kind of, like, you know, got a little sloppy drink in his milk. Al Davis says he's been slamming his head in a pile of Peruvian party powder and eating a mouthful of it, or whipped cream. Yeah, maybe like Chevy Chase and what was it? Modern Problems, I think was the name of that movie. The shot of Chevy Chase where he's got the cocaine all over his face, kind of like that. So, but yeah, there he is holding the axe in two hands. Let's talk about the articulation on this guy. And I'm pretty sure the articulation is going to be the same on all of these. And if I notice any differences, I will point them out. But Goatman's wrists rotate all around, and they have he's got a held aloft sword hand over here. So a vertical hinge on his right hand and a horizontal hinge on his left hand. And I'm thinking that's how all these are going to be. He's got his head rotates all the way around, but he's got that kind of hunchback thing going on, so it kind of bumps into that. He can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of close side to side. The arms rotate all the way around the shoulders, move up to the shoulders less far than I would think they would. He's got a single joint of articulation at the elbow, bends about that far, rotates all the way around. I already talked about the wrist articulation. He does rotate all the way around the waist, the gladiator kilt, even though it's part of the harness, doesn't get in the way too much as far as that goes. Goat Man can only kick up about that far. He's very muscle bound. He can do the splits, no problem. He's got a single joint of articulation at the knee, bends in about that far, rotates all around. No ankle joints, no boot cut, nothing like that whatsoever. So he's got, like I said, pretty much all of his outfit is the same color, kind of a brownish, blackish, like a really dark brown or a really light brownish black. And then he's got kind of this slightly metallic burgundy belt with some detailing to it. He's a very devilish looking character. And I like this design better than the original design of Goat Man. I'm going to say that right off the bat. I do really like that. They did a really good job with the design of Goat Man in this movie. Which, if there's anything you want out of a Masters of the Universe movie, you want them to get Goat Man right? Al Davis says, like Tony Montana. Yeah, see, again, another good example of that sort of thing. Let's move on to our next figure, which is Man-at-Arms. So Idris Elba plays Man-at-Arms, and I thought this was really good casting. I'm really excited about it. I know that a lot of people were kind of grousing about it's another race swap character. I don't care. I could not possibly care less. I don't think it's a very important aspect of Man-at-Arms character that he needs to be Caucasian, that he absolutely has to be a white guy. Doesn't matter to me in the slightest. Like, it means nothing. You know, like My rule, I've said this before, I'll say it again. My rule as far as race swapping characters goes like this: if I ignore the fact that the character and the actor are two completely different ethnicities, can I think of a better actor to play this character? And if I ignore the fact that Duncan previously was usually portrayed as a white guy and Idris Elba is a black guy, if I ignore that they're two different ethnicities, all other things are equal. Can I think of a better actor to play Man at Arms than Idris Elba? And no, I can't. Idris Elba is a great actor. I'm a big fan of his. I think it's exactly the kind of part I want to see Idris Elba playing, if we're being honest about it. I like him. I like him as good guys. You know, he can play villains. He's good at playing villains. I'm not saying he's not. And villains are the most fun to play. But I usually prefer to see him as a heroic character. And I think he's going to be able to pull off that kind of warm, paternal quality that Man at Arms is good at playing. Chuck Norris 20 years ago, maybe. I'd say Idris is a better actor than Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris memes aside, rather than, you know, being like Chuck Norris won an Oscar for his last bowel movement or something like that. Like, just talking about how awesome Chuck Norris is. But if we're being serious about it, it's like he's not really like that kind of an actor, you know. Whereas Idris Elba is that kind of an actor. And but Chuck Norris, he probably could have been Man at Arms back in the day. He probably could have done it. But yeah, immediately thought Idris looked perfect. Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's the thing is, like, I wasn't even thinking about that at first. It didn't even occur to me to think that, like, oh, Idris Elba's black, and like Man at Arms is usually white. I like just did not even occur to me. I'm like, ooh, cool. He's a good actor. He's gonna knock that out of the park. And, like, you know, it seems like people are always wanting to try to cast Idris Elba as James Bond. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that that's a good idea. If I saw how people were bitching about Idris Elba playing Man at Arms, they're certainly going to bitch about him playing James Bond. You know what I mean? Not that he couldn't do it well. That's a movie I would definitely be interested in watching. I would watch the hell out of that movie. But also, I kind of feel like James Bond is one of those where, like, he's kind of supposed to represent that sort of, like, 20th century, you know, British Empire in the kind of post World War II kind of world. To me, James Bond should seem kind of like a relic. And if you were to change his ethnicity from being a white guy, it would make him a little too modern and a little too progressive. And I kind of feel like James Bond shouldn't really be either of those things. James Bond should kind of always be sort of a Cold War. Even if he's a character that takes place in the modern day, he should feel like a Cold War character. He should feel like he's a little out of step with modern times. Where, like, remembering GoldenEye, where M called him a misogynistic dinosaur. That's how people should look at James Bond in the modern day, if he's a character that exists in the modern day. Al Davis says, I thought the same thing for Jeffrey Wright in The Batman. It didn't affect the character whatsoever, and a great actor. Exactly. And again, I could think of one actor that would be better to play Jeffrey Wright than, or to play Commissioner Gordon than Jeffrey Wright. But I already saw Gary Oldman play Commissioner Gordon. So, Al Davis says, I want Freddie Stroma, Vigilante from Peacemaker, in a violent 60s set trilogy. Sign me up. That is definitely something I would watch. And it's like, despite how I feel about that particular iteration of Vigilante, I have some complex feelings about that. We're going to talk more about that in the Vigilante episode when I open up the original Vigilante, which is a completely different character, but I know it's going to come up. I did think he played that character very well. I thought he was good in it, and I could see him as Bond, especially like if we did that sort of Cold War era Bond, which is what I would do. I would have it. It takes place in the 50s and the 60s, and it's like hard drinking, hard smoking. You know, it's Ian Fleming all the way. That's how I would do it. So, you know, we already had like lots of cool modern versions of Bond. Take it back to its roots. And I kind of feel like that's also part of the reason why, like, even though it wouldn't have been what I would have done, I wouldn't have really minded seeing Idris Elba play James Bond, and I would have been interested in seeing it. Is because we've just got so many different versions of James Bond already. We might as well just go crazy with it and do some different versions of it. So yeah, do a black James Bond, do a classic 1950s style James Bond, take it back to the roots. You know, do Moonraker Part 2 and bring him back into space. It's like jet setting, exotic locations, fast women. That's what I'm talking about. That's how I do James Bond. It would like ideally I would do the trilogy, which means I'd have to remake Thunderball again. But I'd want to see all three of those together. You know, since they were out of order in the actual movie, the original movies, but do them in order this time. Do Thunderball, then Honor Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then finally You Only Live Twice. That's my trilogy that I would do. I would do all three of those. Idris could be M. Yeah, sure. Why not? I don't feel like that interferes with it too. He could be M. He like I said, I totally watch a movie. I'm not saying he shouldn't play James Bond. I totally watch that movie. I'm just saying it's not what I would do. Because I would take it back to that Cold War kind of set. That's what I would do. I'm just saying. Like I just got a different vision of the character. So he's got a lot of cool details to his armor, which I want to point out. And this is going to be some speculation on what I think some of these parts are. And maybe check back on this after we've actually seen the movie and let me know how right I was about a lot of these things. But he's got what almost appears to be like a mini jetpack on the back here, like some kind of exhaust or something like that. I could see that being like a little bit of a jetpack kind of thing. And even some things on his boots that look like they might kind of tie into that. I don't know. I'm just speculating. It might just be some kind of detail they thought was neat looking. But I'm telling you this, if I was a kid playing with this toy, I totally would have pretended this is a jetpack. That's just what I would have done. And then he's got what appears, and I'm sure I'm right about this. Like, I'm speculating about the jetpack, but I'm telling you, this is what I'm almost certain this is he does have a little bit of a wrist blaster there. So that's cool. And then you see like a little rod there, which to me looks vaguely like his mace. Like it could be like his mace kind of like expands somehow. And, he contracts it back down to this smaller size to keep it on his armor when he's carrying it around. And then we got a little bit of a tab here, and that's where the blaster fits. So he can carry around his blaster on his hip there. So that's cool. I always like having extra weapon storage there. He is very inspired by the Filmation version of Man-at-Arms, where he has that more sort of symmetrical look. Although, as I pointed out before, he's only got the armored bracer on one hand, and he's got some extra armor on the thighs that we don't usually see on Man-at-Arms. So I think it looks really cool. But other than that, it looks very similar to the Filmation look of the character, very similar to the original figure in a lot of ways, too. And the 2000X, there's all kinds of 2000X influence in the visuals of this. He's got that kind of metallic blue belt, metallic blue helmet with some of the orangey sort of detailing on it. Not as much as I would like, if I'm being honest. I think they could have done a better job of this helmet. Like as far as like adapting this helmet into live action, it looks fine. It looks okay, but I think they could have gotten like more sort of the general shape of it. I think that they probably could have. Maybe they'll improve on it in the sequel somewhat. It looks all right. I'm not complaining about it too much. I'm just nitpicking. This is just my opinion. And he's got that kind of face shield kind of thing, and it's lower on there. It'd be cool if maybe this was something that retracted or extended, depending on the situation. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but it would be cool if it did. And he's got kind of grayish gloves. So he doesn't have green gloves that match his bodysuit like the classic Man-at-Arms usually has. But anyway, the pistol fits in his hand just fine. I noticed the pistol is a very rubbery kind of plastic. It's even more rubbery than the stuff that they use on his armor. But there he is holding the pistol. And then he's got the mace, the classic Man-at-Arms mace. And like I said, they did a really good job of matching the look of the classic action figures mace. And it's a pretty good size for him. It's a pretty good proportion to him. I'm of the opinion that the original figure, the vintage Man-at-Arms figure, the mace was a little smallish. Al Davis says the collar respirator thing looks very Dolph movie. Yeah, where they kind of minimized it. It's still there, like it's still acknowledged, but it doesn't come up and cover like the lower half of his face, like in the mini comics, and still isn't quite as probably just like I don't know, maybe for the ease of the actor, making sure it doesn't cover up too much of his expression. But it would be cool if it expanded somewhat whenever whenever he needs it. But yeah, I always felt like the mace with the original figure was a little on the smallish side. This seems like it's about the same. It's maybe a little bigger than that one even, but about the same size. But since he's a more realistically proportioned figure, I think it works better in terms of proportions for him. Let's talk about his articulation real quick. And like I said, I figured all these are going to be about the same, but we'll go over it real quick. You can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilts his head, corner, side, rotates it all around. Arms rotate all around the shoulders. The shoulder armor is going to kind of get in the way of that. By the way, there are little tabs over here, so I believe this shoulder armor is removable. Let's get a look at what his chest looks like underneath. And he's actually got a little bit of circuitry sculpted into his bodysuit underneath. I wonder if that's something that we'll see in the movie, or if that's just something that they did just for the figure. We've only got about a month to wait now, don't we? Yeah, it's not much longer. So, Man-at-Arms rotates all the way around at the waist. You can kick up about that far. You can do the splits, no problem. He's got a single joint of articulation at the knee that rotates all the way around. And then no boot cut, no ankle articulation. This all even looks like it's molded in one solid color, and just the orange and the kind of grayish, tannish color just kind of painted on there. I think that his gloves are a little more gray than his boots, but they're a similar color, but not the exact same color. Kind of surprised they're not the same exact color. All right, so now let's get really into the nitty-gritty of comparing the two core He-Man figures. So you can see there's a difference in the hair color, and it doesn't seem quite as apparent on the camera as it is in real life, but to me it's like glaringly obviously different in real life. And on camera it's slightly different. But you can see this one is a little more of a warmer yellow color for the blonde hair. And it does look like, to me, it's got like maybe a little bit of dry brushing on it, but not a whole lot. More sort of towards the front. And I don't even know if that's coming across in the camera at all. But almost kind of like an orangey sort of color. They kind of dry brushed on there to give it some differentiation. The paint is different. And I talked about how like the paint was really nice on the face of this one, but I think with the Amazon version, they got even a little more detailed. Like they painted in the lips on the single carded one, but it looks like they painted in like each individual lip on the Amazon version. So like the upper lip is a slightly even darker color than that, which makes it look a little more shaded. The eyebrows seem to be the same shape, but they're a slightly different color. He's got a little bit more of that sort of pinkish shading around the eyes, like that kind of, I don't want to say eyeshadow, but not eyeshadow like makeup, but like you see there's shadow under my eyebrows. They kind of paint that into the figure and it looks nice. And then his hair is like I said, it's a little more sort of dirty blonde, and it's I think it's molded in this this kind of, it's yellow, but it's more a tannish yellow. This is almost more of like an orangey sort of yellow with a little bit of tan in it. This one's more like a tan yellow with almost no orange in it whatsoever. And then it's got looks like a little bit of brown, like a darker tan, dry brushing over it. It looks really nice. I think that the paint detailing is a bit more. I think the paint is a bit more detailed on the Amazon version than it is on the single carded version. Even the flesh colors, I think, are kind of slightly different. And it looks like there's a little bit of light airbrushing into the crevices of the muscles on this figure to kind of emphasize those a little bit. Now seems like a good time to take off this breastplate. Because like I said, this does seem to be a removable breastplate. And like with Goat Man, it seems like that the this plastic isn't really conducive to this. It is pliable, but it doesn't seem like it's as pliable as you'd want something like that to be. So let's go ahead and take off the breastplates on these, because I do want to compare how they're painted as far as the torso underneath. And, you know, if you wanted to, since these are removable pieces, you can swap them around really however you want to. But like I said, the skin colors are slightly different, but, you know, I don't think they're different. They're so different enough that like I can put the standard one, the standard head on here, and it looks fine. I think the main difference might actually be the shading. Like the plastic itself is a similar enough color. It's the shading that makes it different. But you can see how like they got like a little bit of airbrush on, kind of like with the Stranger Things He-Man, but not quite as extreme as that one. A little more subtle. But you can see how there is that little bit airbrush shading on there. That kind of brings out the muscles a little bit. And you can definitely see the difference in it's a little more greenish, this Amazon brown. It's like slightly more greenish, almost like an olive kind of brown. That's a way to describe it. Sean Franklin is here, and Sean Franklin says hi. But yeah, so that's how this Amazon figure is different from the single carded release. Now, whichever one you think is better, I think is going to depend a lot on, you know, your own personal preferences and what you're looking for out of this line. But I would say that the Amazon version does seem to be a little more detailed. Whether or not you think that's a good thing is up to your own personal preferences. That's how we're going to put that. So I'm going to put both of these back together now. Sean Franklin says he was just playing Batman Arkham City. Well, that's cool. I hear that's a really good game. I still haven't ever played any of the... I played a little bit of Arkham Asylum once at a friend's house. But I just don't get a whole lot of time for playing video games, unfortunately. And I don't have any of the latest systems or anything like that. So I'm a little behind on that. I would like to play those Arkham games one of these days, though. One of these days, I'll get around to doing it. All right, so we'll put these, make sure we get the right head back on there. And as far as comparing them to the other figures go, you see there are a lot of similarities in terms of, like, the head sculpt. They're probably all based off of the same digital head sculpt and just kind of resized for whatever figure they're supposed to go on. I'm not sure if the Origins version is actually sculpted any different, or if it is the same sculpt, just kind of rescaled for Origins. But that paint sure does make it look different, doesn't it? We got that kind of 80s style paint on the Origins figure, the more realistic modern style paint on the more, you know, modern figure. And then, of course, the Chronicles version would be the most realistic of all three of them. So, and you can see that he's got, I hear there's a variant on He-Man now, where like they changed up the face paint on him and made it look a little bit more like the actor. I think this is a fine likeness as it is, but the one that I saw online was even better. So, and then He-Man, look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of to the side, rotate the head all around. Of course, the arms rotate all around the shoulders. It's the same articulation scheme as on the other figures and doesn't really seem to have too many eccentricities. He-Man probably should be the most vanilla figure in the entire line. You know what I mean? Al Davis says, are you planning on doing a rating score tier list kind of thing? Oh, hell, I don't even know how I would rank these. They're different characters, you know. As far as like doing comparing the He-Man figures, like the figures of the character of He-Man to themselves, like, yeah, I think all of these serve their purposes in the best way they can. This is a vintage look, and it nails the vintage look. And this is a more modern look to an action figure, and I think it nails that. So like this is a better modern figure than this one, but this one isn't supposed to look like a modern figure. It's supposed to look like a vintage figure. This one's a lousy vintage figure. They never would have put this much effort into painting an action figure back in the 80s. Even if they had the tech, I don't think they would have used it. They would have tried to save as much money as possible. And this one also is like more of a kid's figure, whereas this one is more for the adult collector. Now, I'd be lying if I said that this one just wasn't the best of these He-Man figures overall because of that. But again, it's solving different problems with different solutions, and they all do exactly what they're supposed to do. So, and like I said, I kind of feel like whichever versus the Amazon versus the single carded one, I kind of feel like whichever one you're going to prefer in terms of that is going to depend a lot on your own personal preference. Now, since I do have two He-Man figures in front of me, I can pretend like one of them is Faker, can't I? But which one is Faker? Huh? You decide. If you made it this far in the video and we're like an hour and 15 minutes in, this is a long one. I knew it was going to be a long one. That's why I knew I needed time for it. If you made it this far in the video, if you're watching it, you can say even in the chat now, but especially in the comments if you're doing it during the rewatch, let me know which one of these you think would be the real He-Man and which one would be Faker. Let me know which one you would prefer to be which. I would be interested in what we see in the chat. Anyway, let's move on to Skeletor because he's the last one we got to deal with. So the biggest difference on any of these on the figures is with Skeletor, because like I was talking about before, he's got that fabric cape. We already talked about that somewhat. So there's like that little bit of a cowl that comes down. I can think of that, so we can call that a cowl that comes down in the back. I don't know if it's one piece with the cape itself, but they're both glued underneath that breastplate, so it doesn't really matter. And like I said, it doesn't seem like this gladiator kilt is intended to be removed. It doesn't have any kind of closure that I can see like the other ones had. But like I said, you could take it off. You just have to take the legs off the figure. The purples seem more similar than the browns on the He-Man figure. And I don't even know if it's going to come across on the camera. But it does seem like to me like the Amazon one is a little more on the bluish shade of purple, and the single carded one is a little more on the reddish shade of purple, but just kind of barely. The body of the figure looks very similar. He's got like that same sort of gray wash to it. This is a figure that obviously was sculpted to be Skeletor. This is not an example of them just reusing the He-Man body. He's got that kind of look to his skin where it's almost kind of like a layer of skin has been stripped away, and you can see the muscle underneath. I think that he's a little bit taller and a little bit more muscular than He-Man even. Jared Leto is wearing a muscle suit. So, and he's got the purple bracers with a lot of good detail to him. Purple boots with a lot of good detail to him. There's a lot of like snake imagery that's been put onto this version of Skeletor, which they said it was because he was from Snake Mountain. So put some snake imagery onto this costume design, more in favor of the, bone imagery in a character named Skeletor. I question that logic, honestly. I think they did a really good job with this costume design, but I question that particular logic. So, and as I pointed out before, I do like the paint job on the standard release more than this one. But I noticed another difference is that in this one, his eyes are just kind of red dots in the middle of black eye sockets. And in this one, it seems like I can't tell if it's white or yellow dots with a little red ring in it. Al Davis says, well said. Well, thank you. I like to think so. I prefer the fabric cape. If I'm going to pick a cape on this, I'm always more of a fan of the soft goods capes than the molded plastic capes. But I will say that there's a good reason to make a molded plastic cape of Skeletor, because he's got this kind of, I noticed this when I was looking at pictures of the Chronicle figure online. He's got almost like a spine down the back of his cape, and I just think that's really cool. And I'm not sure if that's some kind of embroidery or if there's like just some actual kind of, it almost looks like there could be little rings sewn into the back there, but they gave his cape a spine, and that I think is awesome. And I'm not going to talk about the articulation on this guy. I've already talked about the articulation on like 3 other figures. I'm done with that. But he's got pretty much the same articulation as He-Man, and you can get him into a cool 2-handed pose with the staff. I love the staff. I think this is a great staff. I'm really happy with how that turned out. I kind of want to buy extras of this guy just so I can have some extra staffs to give to the for $10. I probably will buy some extras of this guy just so I can have some extra staffs to give to the Origins figures. And where did I put the Origins staff? Because I know I just had that one over there, the one that came with Keldor. Maybe that was what fell on the floor earlier when I heard something fall on the floor. But I've got a lot of stuff piled up over here, and especially with opening up these figures. So, yeah, there it is. Okay. Oh. But, yeah, you can see, like, it's a little slightly longer than that staff. So, and it fits in the Origins figures just fine. It fits into their hands just fine. So, I will probably buy some extra Havoc staffs just for that. And I do like, it was worth buying this one. Even though I like the fabric cape better, it was worth buying this one on the single card just because, like I said, I think they did a better job painting in the skull on this one than the Amazon figure. If I can figure out how to swap, I'm probably just going to like try to see if I can peel the hood off of each of these and swap out the actual skull part of it. I like the skull better on this. This one I think is more the better figure overall, mainly because of the fabric cape. And I don't see that many other differences. But I do think the fabric cape is better. But I like the skull so much better. This is like probably one of the best Skeletor head sculpts I've ever seen. Not just with the good head sculpt, but the way that they painted it in with that black wash. It just brings out all the detail. And it does make it feel very Filmation. Like if you remember, and I'm sure I've got him around here somewhere. Yeah, because I always keep him at hand. When I made my Filmation Skeletor head, and I basically just took the old Club Eternia head because I had an extra one, and I stuck it on there, and I used the Gundam marker to ink in the teeth because I wanted him to have those individual teeth, and kind of inked in the separation at the jaw there. So I really wanted to capture that Filmation look, and not to toot my own horn, but I do think that I nailed it. And with the separate teeth, the wash gives it the separate teeth. And that does remind me a lot of Filmation. So I really like the head sculpt on this one. I opened up 3 of these core figures so far with the Revenge of Skeletor, and then the Amazon one, and the single-carded movie version. And the single-carded movie version has the best head sculpt. Anyway, that brings this episode to a close. It's been a really long one. I thank you for your patience and sticking with me for almost an hour and a half talking about these figures because we had a lot to go over. And I'm going to go ahead and shoot my thumbnail for it. And we'll be back with more of these core figures later. Because like I said, I got Mechaneck, I got Tila, and I got Beastman. I'm going to want to open those up. I got the Origins movie version of Beastman. And very soon, we're going to start on the 2000X figures. Because like I said, I wanted to do those kind of as a tie-in to the movie figures. And we'll probably have some more movie figures interspersed in there because like I said, I got the core figures and I got Fisto. Maybe I'll open those up a little bit closer to the movie. I don't know, but I did feel like the 2000X figures would be appropriate to open up while we were talking about the movie, since the movie does have a little bit of a 2000X aesthetic to it, which I dig. So anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe, and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about these figures and which ones you think are the best ones and what you prefer between the Amazon and the single card versions. And I'm finally starting to feel tired enough that I think I can try to sleep a little bit more before I have to go to work, which is good because I got to go in early, and I don't like going in early, but I gotta make them ducats. I gotta earn them shekels. I gotta put some money in the bank. So yeah, I'm gonna take the thumbnail picture for this, and then I'm gonna hit the hay. I'm gonna try to get a little bit of sleep before I gotta go to work. So that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.